It has a name worthy of a 60s sci-fi flick, the Hermes 3000. There is a futuristic quaintness to it, like how people from the future might jokingly name a device from the past, or vice versa. This typewriter, released after the Hermes 2000, was made initially in 1958 and was in production until the 1980s. It's a long run. This is about my experience with my first typewriter and how I think it has helped me as a writer. I'm running with the assumption that the Hermes in Hermes 3000, so I'm editing the video now, and I had a look at my first pronunciation of Hermes, and I'm pretty sure that was incorrect. So I sent my Greek friend Elke a message, and she's got back to me with an explanation of the pronunciation.
Hermes. Because, okay, I have to explain the idea of the H before the A.
But that goes on for about 5 minutes, and it goes into a lot of detail that I wish I could play here, but I can't. And kindly, she sent me a truncated version.
So the typewriter's brand in Greek, as in the way that we say the Greek god's name, would be Hermes.
That's nice to know. But now I've got to go dub every single instance of me saying it wrong. So yeah, Hermes, Hermes. Isn't the Hermes bag company or Hermes bag company? No, instead, I think this is actually a reference to the Greek god Hermes, the god of language, oratory, wit, and messages. That's among other things, mind you. I only picked the last 4 off the most relevant ones I thought from Wikipedia from a list of 14. That's a lot of work for one guy, even if he is a god and an Olympian. And it shows, because this thing is built like a tank. It weighs in at a portly 7 kilograms with a height, width and depth of 13 by 31 by 36 centimeters. Safe to say, this typewriter isn't one that you take with you. It's metal on metal on metal with a little bit of plastic here and there. And it's all sort of softened up with a few easy angles, but this is an angular one. But it's not as easy going as its relatives, which took on some very sort of bulbous curves, giving them a little bit of a beetle-like appearance. This one instead takes a little more of a brutalist design cue, in my opinion, while still looking oddly soft, which I put down to sort of like its squishy looking color, which is a seafoam green with a semi-gloss finish that looks like molding clay that just makes me want to just touch it in a way without being creepy to a typewriter. But in saying that, it's simply too heavy to touch anywhere other than home, which sort of limits its practicality for writers, especially if you're inclined to taking your writing with you. I don't know if Hermes, one of the Olympians, would be all that keen on you going absolutely nowhere to write. But clearly, he was keen on all the things we as writers value: language, oratory, wit, and messages. And there is clearly much more to those than a heavy typewriter, and a lot more to a good typewriter than just the weight. The Hermes 3000 has seen me through 120-odd thousand words of a drafted manuscript that I just called a horror story. And we're not going to go into the subject matter because this will never see the light of day, even if it is complete. The typewriter has been mostly reliable in creating what I dubiously call art. Surpassing my artistic efforts, however, the art in which Hermes 3000 functions fits perfectly in the category of understated beauty. The paper support, unlike every other typewriter that I own, allows the paper to flow naturally over the back, like a river of words. I like this design. It doesn't deform the paper as much if you're having a particularly slow day like I tend to have. It has a paper guide which allows you to buttress a fresh sheet of paper against it to ensure that the margin is always the same, which is really good for me. If you've seen my other review, linked there, or wherever YouTube is putting it these days. I'm a shocker for margins. And to set the left margin, right margin, and the ding, it's a slightly complicated action of pressing the slide release on either side and toggling the margin set reliever that's sort of just under it. And then you just simply slide it along and watch the paper bale. The margin width changes on the inside. It's got this little red tape on the inside that tells you where everything is, and it's really quite satisfying. And the paper bale itself is nice and heavy, comes down with a really dense thud, and is lifted by a lever on the right, which on my unit at least is a bit rough. It feels like it's rusted, but I've given this typewriter a full-on colonoscopy, and it came back with a clean bill of health. All of the knobs and dials and buttons have a really satisfying click or release that just gives a feeling of tight tolerances and tight springs. Funnily enough, the company who owns Hermes is actually the same company that owns Bolex, the camera company. And to me, as a person with an education in film, that carries a certain prestige to it. The whole package feels very together, but that is until it doesn't. The return lever, which is long and solid and beautiful, seems to be rather sensitive. Digging back into my memory archives, I can remember when the lever slipped under its plastic housing and it no longer rotated the plate, and it would move it along, but I could only rotate the plate with a knob on either side. And me also being a bit of a knob, I thought that that would be an easy fix. It was a fix, but it took me 2 days and took me down a rabbit hole that in those infant days of Google was complete, utter stress. I removed the plastic housing covering the hinge and then realized that the whole carriage mechanism was loose and needed fixing. This fix involved me using skewers, pliers, chopsticks, sweat, and a liberal lubrication of swearing, all of which we'll go through in an upcoming video of one of my broken Olivetti typewriters. As per usual with me, there are a bunch of things that I don't use on this typewriter. I do use the tab set, as the first line indent is so good, but then I never change it. So tab clear, nah bro, all clear, get out of here. Margin release, well yeah, I do use that one because I listen to music while I'm typing and I just miss the ding. It's soundly dismissed every time and I need that little extra inch on the end. And backspace, well, you can't backspace your way through life. Accept the mistake, move on, fix it later. Now, opening up the cover, the type bars form a sort of a wry smile, like you're about to do some work, aren't you? You clever thing. It sort of dips down like a really gentle sine curve in a way. Maths reference. Get out of my mouth. But it's nice. Like, why did it need to be like that, like functionally? There must be a reason, whether it's down to the key weight or something similar to that, but it's cool to think that a designer went down this route of discovery for maximum artful functionality. Functionality. It's an interesting word. It leads to the most important part, which is the keyboard. The keys are plastic, but feel super solid. They've got a pretty deep indent and they seem to cradle my fingertips quite nicely, like a little finger hammock. Sounds relaxing, right? Well, that would be the case, but I think that Hermes must need to be an Olympian to get the mileage on this typewriter. Every single key is really heavy, right at the top of the keystroke. It doesn't feel like it's resisting my press with friction, no. Instead it feels like it's got springs in here that are forged by Zeus himself. These things feel like they'll never break, but my fingers also require a little bit of Hercules every time I need to get things going. There's even a lever to increase the tension. And once we're in motion though, the type bar has a very graceful arc to the plate and strikes it firmly, assertively, confidently, and it inspires me to write in the same fashion. And then it falls back into line like a good soldier. And all of the keys are as you'd expect. There's even space for a 1 key, which my DL doesn't have. Shift caps lock has a gorgeous clunk, and a special shout out to the space bar. This thing is rock solid. Take notes, Olivetti. It was wishful thinking that you guys will make another typewriter, but I'm still here for it. Also, yeah, the $ is double lined. Bling it out, baby. So what does the Hermes 3000 give the writer? Well, it's certainly not portability. Its case is hard metal and has a handle though, so it can be transported. I've also spoken in other videos about the immersiveness of typewriters in sound and feel and responsiveness. It's got that in spades. Once you get typing, it draws you in, ever luring you deeper into your story, but there's more to it than what every other typewriter does. I think for all things, one thing writers struggle with is reliability. Perhaps this is a self-critique because my implements are consistently more reliable than I am. So the struggle is usually with myself. But having a tool like the Hermes 3000, which outlasted its previous owner, presumably, at a guess, that person would have to be at least in their 70s, it goes to show how reliable this mechanical marvel actually is. And so it was there for me. And for others, serving as a loyal soldier in the delivery of messages and wit, but serving also as an example of how reliability looks and feels. Can I be like my typewriter? Reliable, consistent, productive? I strive towards such notions. And so this is the Hermes 3000. My Hermes, my messenger of language, my language, and hopefully my wit. And with it, I strive to be like that deity. I'm also sort of prone to lurking in the typewriter subreddit, seeing what people say about things, and some people do talk shit about Hermes. And it has been overhyped, if I'm perfectly honest. I mean, mine was maybe 300 New Zealand dollars, but I remember thinking that was obscene money, I mean, especially as a student. But in that way, it has been an extremely reliable typewriter, and I think it sort of deserves the prestige it gets.